evening and welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, Mr. Snippets,
Welcome back to The Real Study.
Black Girl Marvel,
But I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Mr. Marvelite,
not knowing anything about the film.
all the movie things,
Knowing like I was locked in right away.
the pre-review with Super Kami Guru,
Review.
and me, the Real Study movie voice guy. Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. I am Mr. Snippets, and as usual with me is Black Girl Marvel, all the movie things, and Mr. Marvelite. And tonight we are going to be discussing all of the Matrix content, all of it. Every stitch.
What is plural for Matrix?
Matrices. Matrices. So
Yes,
all of the
Matrices.
matrices, as well as you can see there, we've got Ghostbusters listed. It'll be coming out here streaming soon, and we can have a Ghostbusters fest, which could be fun. That being said, let's move over to the drive-in. And how you guys doing this evening?
It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. I missed you guys.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
Agreed.
I really miss Brian more because we haven't seen him in a
So-
while.
That's right.
Brian, my wife
so-
talks about your vampire TikTok to this day. She loves the wispy, it's fantastic. Just put that out there.
Mhm.
She won't be here tonight because she didn't get to
Oh.
finish
Aw,
the movie,
Bessie.
but that's okay. That's okay. Hello, Haley.
Like the-
Thank you for
like
I
the-
can
showing
understand
up.
why she didn't finish it. But...
Oh, shots fired!
Oh,
Shots fired.
I
Okay,
love it.
okay.
And Smitty, you took shot fire right out of my mouth. I was literally about to say that. You just snatched
Yeah.
it and said it yourself.
He took it. That's okay. Do want to let the real study or real students know that there will be no pre-review tonight. Super Kami Guru has the week off, doing some things with family and just wanted a break, which we are all about, personal needs over the show because that's life. Moving on, though, we are going to discuss the entire Matrix saga, so we should probably format this in a very particular way.
Smitty, are you still there?
I am. Do you not hear me?
You disappeared. So
Whoa,
Oh.
really?
yeah.
Well, that's odd. Okay,
I see
well,
him.
we're here. We're here. I'm here. I am here.
Okay,
So we're gonna get
okay,
right into the
sure.
Matrix, 1999 release by the.
Glitch in the Matrix.
It could have been. We even had a
Yeah.
glitch in our own Matrix because last week there was a snowstorm, which is why we weren't here.
Yeah.
And then we had to redo all of the. Hey, we're going to do this again. So I thought that was a great point
The
out that
promos, yeah.
we're
Funny.
going through the Matrix again. So it's the 1999 film by the Wachowskis, starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie Ann Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving, and many others. This is like a cultural phenomenon at the time, so we don't have to get too far into, I think, the first film too much. I think we can get into the logistics of the philosophy a little, but really, I don't think anybody on this panel is going to say too much negative about the first film.
Right.
So I don't think we need to highlight it too much, but let's spend 15, 20 minutes talking about it. And I would love to hear your initial experience, if you will, your very first
Oh.
experience with the Matrix,
Oh,
if you
man.
can tell me that. So
Think back, way back.
Oh man, yeah.
let's start with Black Girl Marvel because she would have been the youngest at the release. I want to hear what she said.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I was 13. I believe I was 13 when this film came out. This
Oh,
came out in
man.
what, 2000 or 2001?
99.
99.
99.
99. Yeah, I was close.
Yeah.
99. Yeah, I was like 13. I was like 13 when the movie came out, and the love I have for Keanu back then is just amplified now. See, the earring fell out. I'm so excited about it. I would say initial thoughts as a 13-year-old is, as much as I love the new like bullet time, I loved the action. I even enjoyed like certain actory things, like the way Hugo Weaving was like talking. Um, I enjoyed some of these things, but the action was like top tier for me as a 13-year-old. I was like, this is amazing. How are they flying through the air doing these crazy slow thingies. But did I understand any of that story? No, I didn't.
Right.
That film made no sense to me, and it wasn't until I rewatched it now where I was like,
Mm,
okay, part of me got it at 13 a little bit, but I just wasn't old enough to quite grasp how it like blended into our own society. And
mhm.
so I'm still lost. Like, don't get it twisted, but I'm better. Maybe in another 10 years, if I rewatch, I'm like, I got it. But right now, it's like, it got better. For me, it aged well because I understood it
Right.
better as I got older. So yeah, that's my
Mhm.
initial.
I like that. I like those phenomenon where you're like, wait, are the cartoons even like you rewatch when you're an adult? Mr. Marvelite,
Yeah.
what was your initial
Yeah.
experience with the Matrix?
We're really going like the reverse age thing,
Yep,
aren't we?
I really am.
Yeah, so I was 16 when this came out. So it was funny though because I honestly did not. It wasn't on my radar initially, and in fact, it wasn't until it hit HBO. I think it was, like after like released on DVD or Blu-ray or
Mhm.
no DVD back then, or VHS, whichever it was. And
Both.
so I remember watching it, and
Mhm.
I actually I was able to start off right at the beginning because unfortunately, when you go on cable and something, you always get like the second half of the film, and then you have to go back and find it when it was on again because things like DVR and everything else didn't exist.
Yeah.
That's the glitch in our Matrix. But you have all of this. I mean, it was just an indictment of mankind because as much as the machines were the enemy, were the villains. Really, it was mankind that did the whole thing to themselves. And I think that was the thing that
Mhm.
really sold me on the movie and on the franchise as a whole. It was this idea that the robots were just trying the machines were just trying to stay alive, and they did it in the most heinous way possible, but they were basing their decisions on how to sustain themselves off of what they had learned from mankind. And you get into that further in the Animatrix.
Yep.
And so
Mhm.
like the whole concept. But I mean, if you didn't know Hugo Weaving, right?
Yep.
Hugo Weaving. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
didn't know
Played
Hugo
Smith.
Weaving before this film, like you knew Hugo Weaving. Like Agent Smith is
Yeah.
by far the most amazing villain I think that I like. It's one of those things where it's like when I found out that he was doing Red Skull for Captain America, the First Avenger, I didn't have to know anything else. Like I
Hmm.
didn't care. I didn't even care if
Right.
the makeup was bad. Like it could have been like Punisher Warzone Jigsaw bad, and I would have been perfectly fine
That's
with it
bad.
because I knew that he was going to
Yeah.
give like an A-list acting,
Oh, and he
to it. So I
does,
Mhm.
didn't
especially
care.
with the. I just watched that the other day. With the makeup, he nails that
Mhm.
character
Yeah. Yeah.
perfectly.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely,
you're right with
absolutely.
Smith. Like the first time you get to see him sitting down with Neo. Anyway, we're gonna get into this. Brian,
Right.
Yeah.
what was your initial reaction to the
Yeah, I'm done.
Matrix?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I sounded like
He's
I'm
still
so
going.
sorry. Trying to
He's,
flow. We
he's
got lots to
notorious for
cover.
that.
Lots to cover.
No, and the only other thing I would say is also this was the first time I think that I really took Keanu Reeves seriously in a film,
Hmm.
because other than Speed, which I think was more like Keanu Reeves being Keanu Reeves, this movie kind of took him out of it, and then I think this paved the way for things like Constantine and stuff like that. So okay, I'm good. You can go now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm done. You're
All the
fine.
movie
Go ahead.
things, go for it.
All right. I was 19 when this came out. I was in the Navy, and I watched this on base in Pensacola, NES Pensacola. And I remember the marketing for this too, like because it was very mysterious.
Hmm.
There really wasn't like a lot of trailers before they did this like whole mysterious like what is the Matrix thing, and they had this whole website and everything you could go to, and that was like early kind of like out of the box viral marketing,
Yep.
that kind of started in, and and then they continued on with like the trailers too, and they had what is the Matrix on the trailers. So I like vividly remember this and was excited for it, and yeah, it was like nothing you'd ever seen before. It was insane, and I just rewatched it in December in IMAX. They brought it back out to IMAX, and like as
Nice.
soon as soon as that Warner Brothers logo pops on it and the green and everything
Hmm.
and the music, like I just felt like a kid again. This is like a big smile on my face. I mean, it still holds up to me, and it was just, I mean, it just took me back to that first experience of it, and I don't think I fully understood like the philosophies, behind it, then I did grasp onto like some of the like the larger themes that they're playing on about like what is humanity and what is reality for you, and what does reality really mean. So but yeah, like as time has gone on, we've had all these like philosophy of the Matrix, like books about the Matrix, the philosophy behind it. There's college courses out there, at least there were college courses about the Matrix. Just an insane cultural impact this film had. So I loved it. Yeah, still love it.
There's also some evangelical Bible studies based off of the movies, just so you want to know.
Interesting.
Really, it's
Which
ridiculous. But
I've,
yeah.
Oh,
I've
man.
heard that's part of the
That's so
reason this new
good.
movie was made, but we can go into that actually later. My experience is similar to all of these experiences. I do remember the marketing as well. I specifically remember watching Neo, fly back and like get out of the way of the bullets in the promo, because I was like, "What the hell? And what are those ripples? What is going on?"
Yeah.
And then the agent, but that's like all I remember is like that scene from the preview. And then I went to see it in the local theater mid-afternoon and walked out mind blown and went, I don't do this often. And I turned around and I went right back in, because I just had to. I was 22. I was just working full time or whatever. So yeah,
I was so close. I said 23 in my brain.
Yeah, no, I was 22 when it came out. Well, 99. Let's see. Yeah, I would have been 22. So
do you realize that we're all 3 years apart on this?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
I just noticed that because I was like 13, he's like 16, he's like 19.
19
and 22. That's a trip.
22. Yeah.
Kismet.
Whoa.
Anyway, so
all right.
So watching it, I came out of it not knowing a lot about Providence. That's an even better, inevitability.
That's what they keep saying. Yeah,
a few words. So I came out of it, not having studied a little bit of classic literature, but not a ton. And so I'm like going home and like looking up all these, what's the Nebuchadnezzar? What is this? But that's how far I got into it. I became a fan instantly and raged on it almost immediately. So when the sequels came out, I actually got really nerdy, and a buddy of mine and I got the glasses. That's why I have the glasses. We wore trench coats.
Man.
We went to the Reloaded in costumes.
Oh, not trench coats.
Yeah,
I
oh yeah.
love
We
that.
went a whole 9 yards. Like we went nerdy, and at the end of that movie, he veered to the I don't like it, and I veered toward the I do, and it was very interesting because we took a very different approach to the series after that. But I don't know. Why don't we just go through each initial impression of the films, get those out of the way, and then we can talk about the story of the whole saga. It's a thought.
Cool. Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
We're going to just go over just your initial thoughts of the films and your initial impressions of each film, and then we're just going to go into all of it and then rate them all at the very end.
As a whole thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just dab on them, then go over the mythos, and then rate.
I just think for this, it's a good way to do it. If we do another,
should we do a rating of the saga as a whole, including all of it?
Sure. At the end, what do you think of the whole? I like that.
Cool. Yeah,
okay, so we're gonna start again. We'll just keep this in order.
What do you think of the whole?
Black Girl Marvel. What did you think of the Matrix Reloaded? Welcome and thank you. Thank you for the
follow. Oh, welcome. Yeah, I know her. That's nice. Okay, so Matrix Reloaded, I realized that never seen it. So all these movies, so from two and down, all these was new. I was like, I realized that I never partook after the first Matrix. So I remember bits and pieces from the second one only because Jada Pinkett Smith was in it, and I was like, a black woman. I was all excited. Yeah. And I'm like a prominent black woman. Like she just wasn't like Oracle, and this like had like a part.
She had a significant role.
She had a significant role, and she was connected to one of the top 3, so it was like that was nice. Matrix Reloaded for me, watching it, I was very much like, it continues. Like it continued on the Messiah complex of the one. His reluctance to be the one, which in turn makes him the one. Like that's a very smart kind of prophecy type of mind mess up to get you through. overall, I thought they upped the technology and they upped the the action, because now he had like a Superman-y type of complex to him where he could like fly. He was way more secure in himself. His fighting was above all. His
Oh yeah, he was
senses,
confident
he
in his
was,
abilities
you
for
know, he
sure.
was very connected to everything. So
Mhm.
for me, in terms of character development, I was very happy to see that in the second one. Sometimes when you have trilogies or sequels and something like that, they kind of forget what they established with a character in the beginning, and you set him up to be OP, and then you paid it off in the second one that he is
Mhm.
in turn kind of OP, even though they showed that he's fallible in some ways, because underneath it all, he's still human, and he hasn't even really tapped into his abilities yet. Which, so it was nice to know in that movie that there was more for him to be.
Yeah,
And
there's still
so,
challenges for him for
yeah,
sure.
you know,
Like
like,
yeah,
and because I think they said in the movie like he got cut or something, and they were like, "See, he's
right.
just a man," and I'm just
Yeah,
like,
that Merovingian scene.
ah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, ah, that's very interesting. That the machines still see him as a man and not like their doom, which they should
Mhm.
have in a way.
Right.
But so like that was nice. So like I enjoyed the second one. I was like, I sat there with my eyes wide open, like, huh, this is what they did back then when I wasn't paying attention. That's nice. So yeah.
Yeah.
You forgave
Yeah.
the CG, I assume.
So here's what we're gonna do. Okay.
Yeah.
We're
I have my things
gonna
too.
bypass it because this was a time in which they were learning. Okay.
Yeah.
I was
So
going to say that. This is a good point because this
They
is
shot
also a
their shot,
time,
right?
right?
Like
This is a time in which people like Lucas and other big wig directors were
Mhm.
pushing
mhm,
CG, and so it's kind of what
yeah,
all the ILM studio type,
all of them.
digital companies
Oh
were
yeah.
And
doing.
we were
So yeah,
learning because if you look at the big fight scene between all because that's what the second one is with all the Smiths, right?
right.
Right. That's when
He has
he's
to
pretty
fight
much a
all the Smiths.
virus,
Yeah,
right? So um I agree with Ray. The CG was very like cartoony, but I feel
Yeah, they looked
like
rubbery,
they
like
did.
it
when they
was
would
right, like
fly, and like
very
yeah,
um. So for because if you pay attention, because like I know that all the Smiths are supposed to be Smiths, but if you really
hmm
pay attention, they
yeah,
aren't.
No,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
It's
yeah.
other
certain.
dudes
It's
of the
certain.
same height with a
Yeah.
Smith
It's certain
face. Yeah,
instances
Oh
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
see
yeah. I was totally paying attention to that too.
other dark haired men that
Yeah,
they was
yeah.
like we can cut quick and it won't they won't think
Right.
that it's not Hugo, but we have like
Yeah.
22 eyes now, I would say. And we see I
Yeah,
see these
for
things.
sure.
And so whenever Neo would fight and he would like jump into the air or he would like pound down, which is a very Superman-y thing,
Yeah.
it was very cartoony. But again, as for the time in which it was released, we
hmm
gotta give that a pass. We
Right.
gotta forgive it, huh?
I like it.
Right.
Because
Mr.
if you
Marvel.
look at
Oh, sorry.
if you I'm sorry, if you
I'm doing it
jump
again.
to Resurrections, geez, guy, no, I'm just like if you jump to Resurrections
hmm
and he does that same motion, it looks totally like it's real. You know, like it looks like the ripples, like him getting ready, like it just looks way better. So like I forgave them for that. So I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Marvelite. Let's hear
All
about
right.
Reloaded.
So my problem with there was a couple key points that were wrong. And again, I like Reloaded, but there are some things that kind of bother me.
Okay.
One, I feel like
hmm
Zion was a letdown. I think New Zion was kind of they played into this like everybody was living off of this slop and everything else. The Nebuchadnezzar built it up with the first Matrix as everything. This is all like pirated like technology from
hmm
the machines. They're out there living that way. You have like some advanced technology with like weapons and everything else, but when you get to New Zion, it's pretty much everybody's living stagnant. And it was the only, I think that's the only thing that I really liked about Resurrections, that it kind of explained that, because I think I'm not the only person that had a problem with how stale the technology was in New Zion with IO. Um,
hmm
and so that was a problem for me. I did like how they played on the mythology of things like werewolves, vampires, all this kind of stuff were
Right.
actually
Yeah. Yeah.
previous builds of the Matrix that had these remnants left over, and then you get to see some of that kind of stuff come back in the new movie. um my biggest problem with the production, and I think I think Black Girl Marvel hit it on the head there, is they went really hard against the practical effects. The
Right.
Matrix, I think what was so good about it was it was about this advanced. You had like this new technology with bullet time. You had all of these, these things, and I feel like what Matrix Reloaded did was just kind of throw a whole lot of CGI instead of really doing the work to
Yeah.
make something new. Like
Yeah.
you had practical effects throughout the first Matrix film, but then things like the helicopter hitting the building and you had that ripple because the Matrix was not perfect, that made sense. You
That's a
had
real thing.
Neo flying,
That's
right,
how
Yeah,
Glass acts.
they've actually
right.
studied that.
Yeah.
Like that would actually
But
happen.
yeah,
if
but
that
you have
happened.
this you have this concept, and when you think about like with constructs and infrastructures and things like with software, it's not going to have the same processing time that we have in reality. There's things that we can't see in reality, but in a computer generation, it does slow down because it takes so much. It's like when you're playing, a game at a high FPS and then Twitch can't handle it. And so that made a lot of sense in the Matrix. But then I think they just kind of went against the whole practicality that they did in the first film, which is what I think where it kind of lost the excitement for me in that second film. Now, where they gained me back was what we are not talking about tonight is the video game Enter the Matrix that fed into this film.
Mhm.
That if you were on the border of like how are they going to really make this city fresh and new? Well, not only did Animatrix do that for you, but Enter the Matrix was a specific prequel to this movie,
No, it was
which
a
Yeah.
made
tandem. They ran side by
right.
side.
Well, yeah, it was tandem. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of it was prequel because you actually had to find the recording that was used to call them to the meeting at the
From
beginning of
Right,
Osiris.
right,
Reloaded.
right.
Yeah.
All the way through the
So
post
you
office
have
scene, and yeah.
Yeah.
exactly, which that frustrated the crap out of me because I kept dying there. But
Yeah, it took a while to learn the bullet
Yeah,
time
I think I
aspect,
was
right,
which
and
was
too.
so it
great.
was almost
Yeah.
like where they struggle with the film, that immersiveness that they learned, and I think that's what why the Matrix is so appealing. They kept it up, and so that's But again, like I said, less CGI, more practical effects. I think that's one of the things that the new movie got right from the
Right.
handful I know, but we'll
Yeah.
get into that later.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think so.
Brian.
Um. So my opinion kind of changed. When I first watched Reloaded, I wasn't really a fan of it, and it was like just okay for me. And again, it's funny because like years ago when I saw it, it's definitely one of those things I still kind of like get hung up with a lot of films when they like have these very long exposition with dialogue scenes, and like the whole architect scene still kind of bugs me. I'm just like, I don't know. Like it, and the thing is too, like I always think about that MTV, the MTV Movie Awards at that time. The whole
Mhm.
parody they did was like, I just keep thinking about that. I'm like, oh my god, like Will Ferrell is the architect, and so I
Yeah.
think about that thing. But I don't know. I kind of wish at the time when I first saw it, I was like, man, this is like super confusing. Like, why don't they just? Why are we? Why is there so much of this talking right now? Like, let's get
Yeah.
to what he needs to do. And plus like the specific, I understand the architect is a machine and a program and all that, but like the specific language, he's the only one that is using this very specific language and very specific words, where no one else is. Like the Merovingian chose to speak French and or liked French, and like Smith speaks a certain way, but and yeah, it was just a little too much for me. But on the second rewatch, though, this rewatch that I just did, I did end up liking it a little more. But I think that's because I saw Resurrections as well, and I've seen
Yeah.
everything now, so it kind of like I can kind of see where things like in my brain. So I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how's Resurrections fitting into this, and everything. And but still, there's some stuff in there like, yeah, the whole architect thing scene still kind of bugs me, but it's just a lot of dialogue. But
For sure.
anyway,
So as you guys already know, my
I actually like that scene.
did you?
yeah,
Oh, nice.
so my take is going to be uber fan. Just know that on every one of these takes,
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah,
that's why I'm
yeah.
going last to some degree,
I see nothing wrong.
because it's not that I don't see things wrong. It's not that I don't believe in a perfect film. I don't believe in it, but I think that a lot of this took me years to unpack, and I think Ray's going to come to my defense a little bit in the chat here,
Thank you.
because that scene with the architect is one that used to drive me a little nuts. I'm like, dude, why are you being so cosmopolitan? Why are you being such a dick?
Right? Yeah.
Why
yeah.
are you being
should
so
be
pretentious? And then I
ergo,
realized, wait a
like,
minute,
yeah.
they tell you why. The Oracle is one half of that coin, where she's not a pretentious
Right.
asshole.
Yeah.
She's a home
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
like, you know, home cooking, like grandma type that's going to help you understand everything perfectly
Mhm.
in the way you need it to be heard. So he needs to be
Well,
the
she was
opposite side of the coin, right?
philosophical
Right, but
too.
she'll
Like,
still
you
she
know,
gets you there, right? She makes you feel warm and
right.
fuzzy and helps you. He is
Mhm.
he is stiff. He is, you know, antagonizing. He's talking down to you. He's pretentious.
Yeah.
He is
Like
exactly what
he's
the
the
machine sees
disciplinarian. She's the
as. Yeah,
comforter. So
exactly.
yeah.
And that's how the
Mhm.
machines mostly see us. Although she is also how the machines see us, as we see in the further films. They
Right.
see us in both ways, but again, they're all individuals. And I think a lot of us viewers as humans don't think of all of them as individuals. We see one giant mass of robots, while the architect has his own
Mhm.
priorities, while the sentinels are, I think, mindless machines. If you think
I would think so.
I think
I
they're
feel like
mindless.
they are like,
But
yeah,
some of those
they're
types
controlled by
aren't.
one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one program
Right.
running all of them or whatever.
But
Mhm.
yeah, but just
Um,
like any
yeah.
machine, they have a directive, and then they need to go
Right.
by
Right.
that directive. And if something comes in between that, it's to be pulled in two separate directions. But
Right.
continue.
So the
Well, it's
architect.
also like okay, yeah.
No, you're good. The architect, from just from watching it over and over and over again, is basically telling Neo, "You're the fifth one. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you are a part of our literal control over you. You are part machine." He's telling him, "You have 1% machine code in your DNA," is essentially what he's telling him. And that's why they need him to go back to the Matrix so they can reinsert that DNA to understand how to understand the one. Because even they don't quite understand it, because there's this human element they can't deal with.
That was a
Choice.
revelation for me to know that. To know that again, like I said, this is all new to me. So to realize that he's the fifth one,
Yeah.
to realize that like he is a part of this system's programming of this, like that was I was like,
Mhm.
what? That's why I like that scene, because it gave me information that I didn't. I was just
Right.
I was
There
just
were,
like Neo in that moment. Like,
yeah.
Right.
wait, what?
Well, there are parts
Like,
that I like. Yeah, there are definitely parts of it. You know, I just felt like it needed to be like, let's compress this. Like, let's
That
shorten
makes
this a little
sense.
bit
Yeah,
and
yeah.
no,
not,
I respect
you
it.
know,
Like I
there are
always say,
definitely
2-3
elements where it's
minutes.
like, yeah,
You know,
like, yeah.
Now this feeds
And
into
like
what
Neo,
Mr. Marmalite was saying as
the
well.
stuff Neo said was
Mhm.
really good though.
Right.
So that helped me with just like
Well,
Black Girl Marvel said, like we're Neo in that scene.
I
And
think we're Neo
so
through the whole
some of the
thing.
stuff is
Like the
probably,
whole entire series is from Neo's perspective.
well, yeah, yeah. But I
Um,
mean, especially in that scene, like you're not, Neo
because
isn't necessarily understanding what he's saying
yeah, because I
all the
feel like
way
in the
through.
first one, you think you after the first one ends, you're like, oh, I know what this guy is. I know who he
Right.
is. He's
he's
the
the
one that's
one.
gonna save everything. He's the one. And then when you get to this one, and the
Mhm.
guy is like, it's cute that you think you're the one, but you're the fifth one. And this is
Right.
all a thing that we've planned. Like Zion ends, we rebuild it. They keep
Right.
doing this. Like it
And
was
that's what I was going to say.
so
If they've had
to
to
hear
rebuild
that
it
is
over and over
crazy.
again, like Mr. Marmalade was saying, they've rebuilt Zion over and over again. It's not going to be as advanced as maybe
Yeah.
we would expect it to be, because they haven't
Right.
had 200 years to build it. They've only had
Yeah.
50 or 40 or whatever. So yeah, you're yeah. But my initial impression of the film was, wait, that gave me more questions than I got answers to, when
Right.
because I expected certain things to happen. I think most of us did. We had these theories, like people do now with the current movies. We were doing it back then, like, oh crap, is Neo God? We didn't know. And then they show us that he's just a human, and I think that disappointed people too, to some degree. I don't know, but
Mhm.
ultimately, I loved it. Do you guys want to say anything else about how you feel about this movie? Because we can get into the lore again in the second hour, and come back around. I just don't want to miss anything if this brought up a topic you guys would like to discuss.
I'm going to say this one thing, and this kind of like will overflow into
Sure.
Revolutions. Um, the guy who played Bane, Ian Bliss, he's the
Mhm.
guy who ends up being like infected with Smith in the real world.
Mhm.
His portrayal of Hugo Weaving as Agent
Yeah.
Oh,
Smith
it's amazing.
was
Amazing.
phenomenal.
We'll be
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we
seeing.
don't
Amazing.
get him in the Reloaded
He's just
one,
doing
but
it.
the way he talks,
Mhm.
like I got chills, and I still get chills when I see like that whole
No.
engagement where he's talking to him. He's like, Mr. Anderson, and you're just like,
Mhm.
how is he doing that? So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty
kudos for
good.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what his direction
No,
was,
I agree.
too.
I
Like,
agree. I agree on that. I feel like Hugo did the scenes and he watched it and then he just redid it. He just
Yeah.
recreated it. Like I don't know, because it was just that good. And it's possible that he just maybe he talked to Hugo and had a conversation and was like, or he paid attention to the first one and he really, you know, the scenes he was in. But honestly, I agree with Mr. Marvel. Like I mean, personally, I didn't get chills, but I still agree with him because like when I saw him do that as an actor, I was like, yo, that's good.
That
Like
was good method
You
acting.
couldn't tell.
he made me sit up and watch. Like he made me sit up and watch, and I was like, he's possessed.
Yeah.
he's actually possessed.
Yeah,
It was
There
very good.
is some Hugo
really
Weaving
good.
in there. How did that happen?
But it was
Yeah.
super annoying that nobody like I would think it annoyed me that the one, even in the real world, couldn't see that like look how he talked. Like nobody caught on to the fact that he was very drony and very like, you know, cutting those words. I was just like, he sounds like my man.
Like listen
They
to his
cover that,
cadence
though.
and everything.
But,
It's like, yeah.
but they end up like rectifying that in Resurrections when he realizes it or whatever.
The Wachowskis
so, you know,
cover
it
their
comes back
asses
around.
pretty well.
Yeah.
Like
It
they
comes
do
back
a good
around.
job.
Well,
Don't get me
I
wrong.
want you guys. There's the one scene though, that architect scene with all of the images of all of the past iterations of what Neo did. That is one of the seeds that has caused me to have a problem with Resurrections. So when we get to that, I'll
Interesting.
reference it.
Interesting. All right, so we are going to just move right into Resurrections. Black Girl Marvel, take it away.
Revolutions.
Revolutions, not Resurrections.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
there's a lot of R words here.
Yeah, Revolutions.
The fifth one's reiteration.
And Ray Ray's here, so hi Ray Ray.
Yeah.
Ray Ray's Revolutions. That could be a good topic on TikTok. Anyway. Or Ray Ray's Revelations, maybe. That's
there you go.
Ray Revelation.
Yeah. Okay, so Matrix Revolutions. I'm trying to remember these in my head. So this is the one. Spoiler alert: he dies, quote unquote.
Oh, what?
I know. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Watching these films, I already because I'm faith based. I automatically went like, so he Jesus to these people, especially in the second one when they were like putting food at his door and they were like worshiping him, and they just and they just wanted to touch him. It was very much like the scene of I think it's like Galilee when he's like walking through Galilee or something like that, and they're all trying to like touch him and grab him just because they feel like he's powerful and they can get something from that. So that was very like that was just straight from the Bible.
Save my son while he's in the Matrix.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So like those things. So like in the third one, they take it even further by having him sacrifice himself as the Lord has done. And so
now Lala, he even dies like this.
Yeah, he even went like listen, it's the
straight
whole
up.
And not even that, he was up on a technological cross. Like it was like a whole thing. And he's dying by the hands of the enemy. It's a whole thing.
That affected the entire known world.
Exactly. He sacrificed himself for the. It was great to watch it. I was like, I read this. Let me see this played out. So Revelations for me was Revolutions for me.
Matrix Revelations.
I know Revelations. That's
the next movie. That's the fifth.
No, it is.
Right. Yeah.
That's the fifth one. We called it here. So anyway, Revolutions for me was interesting because I liked it, but I had some issues because for him being the one, he never really trusted in himself until like maybe towards like the end of it all. Like he started like he was having these visions, which was interesting because the Oracle was like kaput or close to being kaput at this time, and it was kind of like even though Smith got her eyes, so did the one in a way. Like so he was able to see things, he was able to kind of have these visions and these dreams, and he wasn't listening to them, and it made me so angry because he could have known about the Smith Bane guy because he saw it happen, but he just kind of like, and he sensed it too, even outside the Matrix, which was a little telltale sign of who he would become even further. The fact that he could sense this stuff outside the Matrix. So I got a little frustrated that he just wasn't like trusting in himself. But again, they got to this in Resurrections where they pretty much like his human feelings, his love kind of clouds him in a way, kind of stops him from like really, really being like the one.
But
Oh
in
yeah, I
CT
said that
films,
later. I said that earlier that I don't think he the fact that he's the one is because he never thought he was the one. So I love that. But I mean, I enjoyed this film. I just wanted him to like I would just they gave him all these like visions that like he the only one he paid attention to was the one about Trinity. And again, I'm not a fan of Neo and Trinity as a couple. Um yeah, I'm not a fan because if you go back to the first one, they barely have any screen time together, but I'm supposed to believe that they're in love because they're in
the Oracle
close
told you
proximity.
so.
That doesn't make it so to me though.
I know. But that's why. That's why she
Like,
believes it. The Oracle told her.
I know, but it's like she said that she would love him, but you just loved him off sight. Like I don't believe in love at first sight. Like I don't. I feel like you can lust at somebody at first sight or think that they're attractive, but I feel like you can't love someone until you kind of like get to know them, even in a split second. And they barely know each other. Like she brought him food and he was asleep. Like I talked about this on my TikTok, but anyway, um, their relationship is just weird to me. But I mean, it evolves throughout the three films. But it was just like, does it really? It was very stagnant. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Um, but again, she's a catalyst of his life. Like without her, he probably wouldn't be the one. Like that's the whole tie-in. But Revolutions, is that what it's called? What is it called?
Yes.
Revolutions. Thank you.
Revolutions.
So I want to say Revelations. Revolutions, because again, the Bible, the last book of the Bible is Revelations. It's the end. That's why I want to say it. But Revolutions. So actually, the sixth film might be called Revelations. But anyway, um, I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. Again, that's just my problem with the fact that he kept having these visions and he just never like listened to them or believed in them. But I love that he realized that in the end, he had to sacrifice himself. As much as we all kind of like want to live and want to be, when you're the one means it's very Buffy to me. When you're the one, that means you have to,
You got to do
lay
it.
your life down on the line and hope that what you did helps everything else. You know what I mean? Because you won't be here to see it if it did. So I liked him dying at the end. I like that his sacrifice bridged the gap between humans and machine. Like he was like, again, I'm gonna bring it. He was the John Connor of this thing. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, Mr. Marlett.
Okay, so first of all, we're gonna not like address any further the fact that Black Girl Marvel does not believe that Trinity and Neo should have been together, because we're gonna just completely look over that. No, but okay, what was
That's
it?
fine. That's fine.
Ray says it perfectly in the chat. The romance was a chicken or egg scenario. It was kind of like which came first. Did he become the one first and she fell in love with him, or did she fall in
Right.
love with him, which made him the one? And I think that's the crux of the story of the between Trinity and Neo, is the idea that um, Neo. And I think this is what was different between Neo and Reloaded, um, with all of those previous iterations with him was. He may not have necessarily needed Trinity in those previous iterations. He may have believed in himself, and in so doing so, when he met the architect, his decision may have been different, because already from the first Matrix film, something was different with Neo, and you kind of learn more going back on that. Agent Smith specifically says, you know, they basically Neo was not supposed to go inside of Agent Smith and destroy him from the inside, and in doing so, Smith, obtained some of Neo's code, which made him the virus that he was. You then also have the concept that when he's at the architect is angered by him because he chooses to go after Trinity, which was not the plan, because in the previous iterations he would have chosen to reboot Zion and would have started all over again and
Yeah.
reabsorbed the Matrix. And so there's already deviations from the previous programs and what was going on with them. And so in Revolutions, you have this concept that he never believed in himself, but the fact that if you really think about it, Trinity sacrificed herself for Neo to be the hero at the end, because her death spawned him to be willing to go in a fight. And it was at the point when he's fighting Agent Smith and he realizes in order for everyone to survive and to win, he had to give up. He didn't have to defeat Smith. He had to give up, because being connected to the machines, they were able to purge Smith from the
Yeah.
program, or at least we
Right.
thought, to the point of where
Right.
everything was saved. And there was that treaty between him and the machines that ended up saving Zion and moving them toward, this different type of peace with the machines. So the concept is very interesting, and I think because of that, because the story should have ended with Reloaded, the idea that Neo was able to evolve to the point of where he could sense the machines outside of the Matrix, that he could exist disconnected from his body, within that terminal in the Matrix. You have this idea of, he's in that limbo in between, and all of these different like situations. It makes it a little bit more. I want to say it makes it a little bit more non-religious in a sense, because you have these specific concepts. Obviously, the Matrix and a lot of films do delve off of religion and mythology, and you have like multiple things. I also kind of got the idea of a little bit of Icarus with Neo too, the kind of idea that he flies too close to the sun. Neo is, he plays things a little bit too close to the chest, and you have this concept that Neo is the tragic hero throughout the story. There's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of Greek mythology. You then also have the mythos of, you know, um, like ghosts and ghouls and all these things, and what they exist. And really, this is what I think the Matrix does really well. It makes you question what's real and what's not, and even the storyline. It's very subjective what the true plot is for the Matrix. You can see one thing, but the purpose behind it or what ends up happening, and what the reasoning behind it, is definitely interesting. I didn't like the new Oracle as much, but I do understand the idea of recasting. I think that they played that off well,
They had no
being that
choice.
the
I mean,
actress from the
yeah.
previous,
I
she
know.
passed away,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you almost wish, but at the same time, the idea that she would be rewritten and she would appear differently, I think they played off that well.
Right. And they used it again in the new movie as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like the meter,
Which I feel like they should do every movie from here. Just get a different actress to play her. So
Well, no,
Yeah.
they did it with a different character, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but ultimately, I mean, I think that's the interesting, the part of the Matrix is, but I will say this, Revolutions, I loved the Zion battle. I mean, it was over the top. There were billions
Totally.
of Sentinels coming in,
It was intimidating.
but those. Listen, I had all of those figures from the McFarlane line. I had the Sentinels and the
Oh
mech
wow.
the mech
The mechs.
droid things,
Yeah.
and if you don't know, and this is where, if you've seen the Matrix movies and you've not seen the Animatrix, and we're gonna get to it later, that kid that's reloading the mechs, he's very important into the story. Like, there's a whole story about him in the Animatrix, and if you don't know it, then you're
okay,
missing out on
well,
some of that
you
fun.
got to
But
remind me about that because when
Okay.
they highlighted his character in the second one, I was just
So,
like,
kid's
what's
story.
I was like, what's the
Right.
point of him? I'm
Yeah,
like, what's the
yeah.
point of him? And then he
The,
had more in the third one. I was just like,
so
I
the
don't care about this
Animatrix
kid.
goes into kid's story just a little bit, and it's very short. But he's basically a kid in high school who's doing very similar to what Neo's been doing, of tracking the Matrix and the weird people doing what they do in this, dark web, if you will. And he starts to get some indication that Neo exists, but it's still like Neo for initially thinks, is it in his head? And he's being chased around the school by agents and throws himself off a building and self-substantiates is what they call it, where he wakes himself out of the
Mhm.
Matrix on his own.
Yep.
Nobody else has ever
Which
done
they
it.
play that in Revolution,
Right.
or Resurrections.
Right.
Like, that concept was based off of what he was able to do in the Animatrix.
Right. So
Yeah.
kid literally walks up to Neo and goes, "Thanks, you saved me." And Neo literally says, "Dude, I didn't save you, kid. You saved yourself.
You
Like,
do
you
yourself,
did it
yeah.
on your own." Nobody can do that. So his brain power is on the level. Like, he knew he was in
Yep.
a wrong world. So anyway, if that helps. Brian, all the movie things.
Yes.
Resurrections. Revolutions.
No.
Man, I'm going to do this all night.
All right. Revolutions. This one I think was about equal for me. Like, on the initial watch, was equal to Reloaded. How I felt like it wasn't the first one. It wasn't as good. I didn't feel I liked it as much as the first one. I think it was like I liked it okay enough, and I did like. And then on the rewatch though, I felt like again I liked it a little more, and knowing that Resurrections existed, it was like, oh, like this is just what has to happen. Still, it's inevitable. Like it's gonna happen, regardless that Neo chose that different path. It still ended up happening again, where he sacrifices himself, and then there's another, and then he comes back. They even mentioned that at the end. The architect and the Oracle would meet up at the park bench, and they're like, "How long do you think this piece is gonna last?" And then the little girl, I forget her name now.
Sati.
Sati, yeah. She's like asking if we're ever going to see Neo again, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sure we'll see him again." And yeah, I hope so. And then, just took like 15 years to do it, but
to say
yeah, which ended up being like 60
their time.
The world, like their world, but yeah, there's still elements of it. Overall, I feel like I liked it, but there's still things that I had trouble with. So, yeah. Yep. But again, like seeing the resurrections again, and then watching all these, it really helped me kind of elevated the enjoyment for me for the rest of them.
That's awesome. I like hearing that. Of course I would.
So excited.
So, here we go. Revolutions.
Regenerations
was a movie that when I first saw it, I was not able to stomach it quite as well as the first two films, because I was excited from where they bridged, like Lala was saying, what they brought with Reloaded. They were like, yeah, we're going to take it up to another level. It was really fun. I really love the semi scene in Reloaded when they impact and catches them and flies up. That's one of my favorite scenes. I'm always like, love it. So when we get to Revolutions and we get like 80% real world and 20% Matrix, I was, what do you mean? We're not going to, we get one big fight in the end, and it's with one Smith. I'm like, what? I was disappointed in those things. But what's hilarious is that as I rewatched it, I started to understand why the Wachowskis chose to do what they did. And the real world is the important world, not the Matrix. And so why would it matter if I was watching that? I needed to be watching the real world, the real life. Like there's so many metaphors within this.
Right.
And the new movie does it too, talking about choice even further. Like, do we choose to ignore things? It's very relevant to today, which is it actually in a weird way, very similar to Don't Look Up in its own way.
Yeah. I was just going to say that too.
Yeah. Because they're connected in that way. There would just this blind want for ignorance. And that's okay to a degree, but does it detriment humankind? And I think that's what the movie is
that kind of speaks to what's his name in the first Matrix character that wants to get Jack back in.
Oh, Cypher, yeah.
Cypher. Joe Pantoliano's character. He wants the ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
That instead. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to steak after watching that scene.
And
I still do.
Right.
I feel like that's, I don't know. I feel like it's okay, and I feel like people should have the choice. I mean, they do give them the choice, like the red or blue pill. That's like that's the choice. But I don't know. I feel like I really wouldn't know what I would pick. I really wouldn't. I don't know. Do I give up the life that I've known for however many years that I've known, and this is what I know, to go to something very unknown, whether it's real or not? That's a huge choice to make, honestly.
I'm glad that they cover that in the new film. So I'm gonna, because we're gonna start talking here about the whole thing in general. Now that we've done the one kind of overview, but why don't we go straight into Resurrections right now? And Lala, what did you think of the Resurrections film? We'll cover the Animatrix when we go through the whole thing.
Resurrections gave me a better view. I will say this: it gave me a better view of Neo and Trinity's relationship. It might have been portrayed better in this film than I feel like it has in the past three, only because you have that history from the past three to kind of like inform this one. So that's the only reason why. Because of just being honest, like their relationship is done better, I say, in the second and third ones, but the first one, it don't make sense that they together. But anyway, and that's just my personal opinion. It just doesn't. I feel like they are together by circumstance, and that's it, and not really because they love each other. And then eventually they start to learn how to love each other because of circumstance.
Said he'll be
I
right
feel like
back.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm about to say. I feel like he's still here. Yeah.
Still here.
Um,
No, I turned it off.
I will say I like the
I'll be right back.
I like the new blood in this film. I'm a huge fan of Neil Patrick Harris. I probably would have watched it sooner if I knew he was in it. I really didn't know anybody but um Keanu, Carey, and Yaya was in it. Those are the only three that I knew was in it. So seeing Neil Patrick Harris was a treat. Seeing Jonathan Groff was a treat. Jessica Hendrick, like that was a treat for me
She was awesome.
to see
Yeah.
them. Honestly, she was us in a way. Like she led us back into the film.
Mm-hmm.
We experienced what she experienced. Like she kind of drove this film, and I actually liked that. I liked that they didn't immediately open up on like Keanu, immediately open up on Carrie, anything like that. I like that they also I like the concept of this film. I love that it's like their way of saying like it's still the same thing, but it's not at the same time because this is code, we can literally rewrite this any way we want to rewrite it, and it makes sense within the concept of this world, right? And then they continue, like I'm a big fan of world building, and they continue the world building. Like it's been 60 years. Of course the Matrix itself would advance, right? Because technology advances. So to have it so that we don't have to go on telephones anymore to get in and out of the Matrix, like you can walk through like mirrors, or you could jump out of a building and he can catch you and like bring you back. Like it's just like, and then it's like a thing between like the old generation and the new generation. Like the old way is great, but the new generation kind of finds quick, faster ways to implement the same things that we've already had before. So like it had a lot of those elements. It had a lot of those elements for me in the film. Again, action is always top notch. A lot of this was grounded action, which I thoroughly enjoy. Like you don't have to fly through the air for me to enjoy things. I mean, it's not bad. I'm not knocking it, but
Batman is fun to watch as well as Superman.
Exactly, right? And the mixture of the two is where we get the Justice League, huh? So it's I I thoroughly enjoyed that they were punching each other. I thoroughly enjoyed that we saw the skill in people. And I like that, like the architect, which Neil Patrick Harris, the moment I saw him, I was like, he ain't right. Like, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because it's Neil Patrick. Maybe because it's Neil Patrick Harris. But they gave us elements to show you who he originally was. And like, I didn't catch it at first. And it wasn't until like a little bit later on. And I was like, oh, is he who I think he is? But I wasn't sure because everybody's like a younger version of themselves. And can I really say that I greatly appreciate, again, spoiler alert, whether ruin this whole movie, but I greatly appreciate that even though they didn't have Lawrence Fishburne, because they had these flashbacks, he was still kind of in it in a way, which was nice. Also, you did have a new Morpheus, but because of coding, he was Morpheus and Agent Smith, which made him a whole new different character.
So crazy.
And they and I because like when I heard that they were casting Yaya as Morpheus, I was a little disappointed because Lawrence Fishburne is Morpheus. But I get it. He's like over 60. He like, I'm cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna sit at the crib on this one. But they found a way to continue him and Hugo's like legacy in a way, but not in a way that just completely undermines the groundwork that they put in.
Sure.
Right. And so I greatly appreciated that. Plus the new character was like it was great the way they blended him. He had very Morpheus elements, but he had like that Agent Smith grit, And I will say I am shocked at Jonathan Groff, who plays Agent, like who plays Smith, because he's not an agent anymore, but he kind of is. But he plays Smith. They gave him a nickname on set. They called him the Savage, because he said he was more in character during the fight scenes than
Nico
he was
Skywalker
during.
Just followed, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the follow. They said that he said that he felt more like the character in the fight scenes that he did in the scenes where he was talking to like the stuntman made him the savage. And then when I watched the film, I was like, it makes sense because I felt like he was in every fight. You know, I feel like Keanu was such like a king when it comes to this stuff that people try to like be up to his level, and I feel like when you can have that on set, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Like, I actually like this one because it took the Matrix and brought it into a world that I recognize, and I think because I was 13, I really didn't recognize that world at 13.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was 13 and everything was
You weren't
raindrops and
using cell
unicorns.
phones or pay phones. You weren't. Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't so to be in this world now, I was like, I get this world, I understand this world, it makes sense to me, and I don't know, it made me sit up and watch, right? It just made me sit up and watch. But I will say, at the end of the day, we ain't need this movie.
What do you mean?
I feel like the first. Oh, thanks for the raid, Smash.
Thank you, Smash.
You're awesome.
And everybody here
Thanks
for the
for the
raid.
raid.
Thank you so much. We are discussing the
thanks for being here.
Matrix.
Yeah, we are.
How are you
spoiling the
guys?
mess out of it.
Where were you guys
Spoiling the
playing?
mess out of it.
Yeah, we are.
Yes,
So if you haven't
we
seen the
are.
Matrix
Commander Crosshair.
Resurrections, we are like full
Yeah, we're
bore
spoiling the mess out of
into
it.
the movie. So
I just feel like the first three matrices were were exactly at 13 the world was Disney, Nickelodeon, and like, I'm honestly, like, real talk, like, she's being very honest and very truthful. So for me, like, the first three matrices, I'm gonna keep saying it like that, to me were a great trilogy, right? There, of course, there's some things that you might not like, or some things that's like a little off or things like that, but I feel like they were a solid trilogy, especially for like this Messiah like story that we started with, right? I feel like it was a great ending. I feel like Resurrections, I feel like, because I heard that the studio was going to go for this movie regardless if the Wachowskis came back. And so I think that the Wachowskis wanted to make sure that what they created, like their baby, didn't get destroyed. And I feel like the concept that Lana came up with is amazing. I feel like it's smart. I feel like it's innovative, but we really didn't need another movie. Like, I really feel like it wasn't needed. Sir,
she was also able to take a jab at Warner Brothers too.
Sir,
wait,
which is good.
wait.
I love that.
There's one piece missing. The whole Messiah thing.
Yeah.
He kind of like came back. So like.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but
to follow the theme,
3 days though.
I get it, but also
60
it was longer
years, 3 days. I mean, depends. That's depends on what kind of Messiah you're working with.
But I will say though, like, even though it's like a whole thing of continuing that he did come back, most of the time people revel at the fact that he died for us. So we didn't need it. No, I'm just going. No, I'm just like, but I just personally felt like, as good as it was, action was amazing. The fact that they pretty much now made it so that they're two ones, because that's essentially what they are. They both are parts of the one.
Or they're both half of the one.
Yes.
Parts of the one. They both are parts of the one.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole, egg or chicken thing. It's right? Like they're,
they cover
that.
It
makes sense, right? Because at the end of the third one, their love is what bridges the divide, essentially, right? So it kind of, for me, it makes sense that in this one they're connected by more than just they're connected, not just by their love, but like by their everything in this one, right? Which to me, why
previous experience and
right, all bleeds into this, and this is why their relationship in the fourth one I can get more on board with, because of the information from all three of them. Makes it make sense that they're connected in a way that their touch, even though that's very Doctor Who, but I won't say anything about that. That their touch like messes things up. So, but again, I'll stop talking so everybody else can talk. I thought that
we love to hear you talk. That's why you're on here, so we can hear your point of view.
I still feel like it wasn't necessary. I'm not a hardcore fan like Smitty, so I'm pretty sure he's going to be like, I need 50 billion more.
No. I'll take what I can get.
But
I need all the R word sequels.
All the R words, Matrix Remembrance,
like Matrix Recoil,
Matrix
renegotiate,
Reconciliation.
Thank you for the host.
How
But
about
yeah,
just Matrix Recall?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
Matrix
just felt
Recall
like
this movie.
it wasn't necessary. But what movie ain't necessary? So,
It's a fair
like
point.
I said, I still enjoyed it.
Every
All right,
Marvel
Mr. Marvel, I am
necessary.
ready. I got my shields up. I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Okay.
Shields up.
Yeah, shields at full power. Okay, so let me talk about the things that I liked about this sequel, or this unnecessary addition to the trilogy, because I do feel like it's still a trilogy, or an anthology, if you include the Animatrix in the video game.
Right.
So after Revolutions, my first thought was, but I could see another story going on where the machines are now fighting amongst themselves, because if there is a peace treaty with mankind and they're not so much fighting if someone like releases someone from the Matrix, then there is going to be a power supply shortage, and these programs are going to fight over resources, and because they're basically a mirror image of mankind,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so that was the logical next step. So they did that really well. I also like the fact that they used mankind by making things more difficult, because struggle and pain
Yeah.
and basically shock and awe is what produces more body heat, or
Elbow
it
grease.
makes the
Energy.
fusion
It's
work
Mhm.
energy.
better.
Yeah.
It's better to mess with them than to let them have this utopia, because it was when they referenced before, one of the iterations of the Matrix was basically the Garden of Eden.
It
It
was
didn't work.
Utopia.
you know
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that was
exactly.
actually real quick. Since you brought that up, I've been thinking this the whole time, and I wanted to mention it. The
Yep.
idea that this new Matrix takes place 20 years past when they considered a pinnacle of our society is interesting, because they
Right.
know this isn't the pinnacle, but they're pushing us towards that because they can manipulate us further and show that the technology advanced. It's almost like they know the technology
Yeah.
advanced, so they're using that. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I also liked how they explained why Zion was not as advanced, and now Io is. You have this concept that the machines are helping them. They're actually being able to take DNA, or the code, and being able to translate that into DNA, which I thought was a very interesting way of doing it.
Mhm.
I do not like Jada Pinkett Smith's character as a leader, not because of her. I did not like the stance that she took. She was a fighter, and she was willing to risk at all odds
Mhm.
to fight for stability. And it was
Yeah.
almost as
You
if
just.
her character as a
Yeah.
leader was giving up and just saying, the same is okay.
Yeah.
And that was very contrary to her in Reloaded and Resurrections,
Some things never
or
change,
Revolutions.
and some things do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
but look at that, like, just that drive when she took the ship through that tunnel network that no one thought she was supposed to do, and like, or could do, and
Yep.
she's like, no, screw it, I'm gonna do it this way. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, to Marvelite's point, it's
You
like,
Yeah.
know,
And she
that's
would have
kind of
never
contradictory.
incarcerated Neo in the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no, but she never. But she admits that she never the woman admits. Well, I think it's her lover, so I'm interested about that. But like
Oh
she
yeah.
admits that she didn't want to do it. But I feel like the thing about it is she went so long in peace, right? Because of how she did things, because of them not going too far, and them, okay, we edge it a little bit, and we doing a little bit here and a little bit there. Like
Mhm.
she had all these people's lives in her hands, which is something that she never had previously. She was just a cog in the wheel, a soldier who, when they told her to fight, when she had to stand up for something, she did. But now that she holds all these people's lives, this new way of living at stake, like there's a part of her that's too old to fight. When you get a little older, you don't want to fight.
Yep.
You like, I'm tired. And I feel like when she found out that Sadi knew that Neo was alive and didn't tell her, that a little bit of the original Niobe, the one that we remember, kind of came
Mhm.
out, because I
Mhm.
feel like if she knew, she probably would have sent out a squad. She probably would have been like, let's go find him. But she didn't believe it. And remember, from the beginning, she was never a believer
She just liked
of
the
Right.
guy.
like the one.
She thought he was a cool
She
She
guy.
just
never believed
liked
in
the
the
dude.
one
She
concept.
just liked him. And
She did believe in Neo though.
As a person, she
right,
saw
she
what he could
didn't believe
do.
in the one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I just felt like because she's older, she was just like, it's too much at stake now. Like, look what we have now. It is not about strawberries. It's about everybody's strawberries. It's about everybody's, thing. So I think that's what it is. But go ahead, Mr. Marvel. I don't want to cut you off.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. Okay,
Of
so
course.
so yeah,
Me
so
too.
there were things that that I thought went really well. I like how they advanced in technology. They got past the payphones because honestly, in this day and time, you would never be able to find a payphone.
No, you'd never be
Or
out
a
of the Matrix.
landline. I mean, that just didn't exist
Right.
back in 1999.
Yeah.
You could still find a landline.
Yeah.
But you have this you have this concept, and I understand it's a new iteration of the Matrix, and that's one thing I have to grapple with because the Matrix that we saw before, the Matrix, pre the Neo Smith fight, was a Matrix that was a little bit set apart. It was very similar, and you could understand the similarities with the real world, but they weren't. It wasn't the real world. You didn't have real locations. I mean, all of this was taking place. I think it was like filmed in Australia, and so you had one major city that was like this giant, like huge cityscape. And you didn't see anything beyond that cityscape. It was almost as if the Matrix only existed as a
city, like
a giant metropolis.
Yeah.
And so
you get that with the
was
chateau
fine.
and him having to fly back to the city.
Exactly.
Right.
That's when that's the first time you get anything beyond, just the city. And so the city in itself was always a character in the movie. And then you have this it's too much like our world, and I think that's what bothers me a little bit too much. I mean, they pulled out the whole sheeple thing, and it was very much like the politics of now, and I like how they did some of it, but I wanted it to be a little bit separate, and I understand why Lana did what she did to to make this film. Part of the whole reason why this was Matrix Resurrections is because the Wachowskis, their parents died like within a week of each other, and so this was her opportunity to kind of give these parental figures that were very emotionally attached to her an opportunity at a second life, which kind of gave her comfort, and I respect that. But
it also didn't let a studio destroy
right,
which
right,
they would have done.
and that dab was really nice, where specifically Warner Brothers is called out,
and they let people do that these days, which is interesting.
Yes. What I also found was interesting. You have this.
We're not saying we don't want a sponsorship, Warner Brothers. We're just saying,
you know who you are.
Well, it's like and I'm only gonna say two more things really. So the idea that they took the entire trilogy and they brought it up as this game that Anderson had been creating was a great way to try to play off of all of these inklings that Neo was having. The fact that his anti-anxiety medication was a blue pill, was a great way of doing that. But I'll be very honest with you, I did not like Neil Patrick Harris in this film at all. I felt like he was the most out of place, and as well, Agent Smith should not have been in this film. And I'm not talking about the Morpheus Smith. I'm talking about Smith, the his boss or whatever. Smith should have been purged from the Matrix. He was the Trojan virus that that was almost destroyed.
They supposedly should have gotten rid of.
And the fact that he recalls like the past, he's a rewrite of the original program, and that should never have happened because they were purging him. And it bothers me. It bothers me a lot.
You reload Windows when you're done purging it, and it works.
Yes,
and you
Windows
can even go back to a specific version.
Before.
But if
they could have rolled him back to right before he was taken by Neo, and he would have been Smith with memory, and then rewritten for the new Matrix. That's how code works. They could have done that. I bought it for that reason.
Also,
now, do I think that he didn't need to be in the movie? Yes. Do I think Jonathan Groff is amazing? Yes. So I forgave it.
I'm just happy he didn't. I'm just happy. I'm just happy him and Neil Patrick Harris didn't sing. I was just happy they didn't sing a show to it or something. I was like, are they going to sing in this movie?
You were saying.
And I will say that the bots inside of the Matrix and what they did at the final fight where they're fleeing and they use them all as like suicide bombers was probably my favorite part of the entire film. Like that was the most immersive that I got into the film.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Because it was just like off the top, and I was just like, I clapped at that.
Like that's insane.
Well, the robots wouldn't care about throwing humans. Like, Screw it.
Can I just say like a couple things on Mr. Marvelites? You know, his thing about Neil Patrick Harris and Smith. Just a
Look,
couple
no.
things.
You said you didn't like the Trinity Neo thing. I didn't go after you with that, so you can't talk about Neil Patrick.
I mean, you kind of did. You were just like, we're going to ignore this person for all of time because they didn't like Neo and Trinity. No. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying to your, not really to your point, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not. How you feel about his performance is how you feel about his performance. I'm not going to knock you on that or anything like that. But I feel like the Smith character, I feel like anybody that's ever been in control of something, especially when it comes to like AI, some type of artificial intelligence, they always think that they can do it better the next time. So for me, it makes sense that Smith was back because think about it. The architects thought he had Smith in control, not realizing by allowing this Smith to see parts of his supposed past, let him unlock a lot more within himself. And because I just love the concept of even the architect realizing that he needed an upgrade as well as this world in a way.
Nay,
They're two
nay,
people.
nay.
They're two
In a way.
people. Two
Right.
programs.
First of all, yeah, Neil Patrick Harris's character is part of the regime that took over during the
Right.
battle between the machines.
The analyst
So
was,
the
or
architect, and the
was
Oracle
thrown
are
out.
basically like wiped out.
Right.
And then you
Yeah,
have Smith and
yeah.
the whatever his character was supposed to be. But the one thing I'll say is if you look at what like even what they set up with in Resurrection or not Resurrections
Revelations. No.
Revolution the Matrix and the machine, City, they are known to just delete and wipe out programs that have no use. And so they would not
Wait.
repurpose.
So y'all saying that?
because
So
then
y'all
those-
saying that there's two architects?
No, there's an architect
Is
and
what
an
you're saying?
analyst.
So
He calls
remember-
himself the
Architect-
analyst.
right. So
Yeah.
so you had
They
you
the
had
same person.
you had the
Continue.
regime that
to
was
me, they the same person. I
He
get
even
what you're
mentions
saying,
him. They talk about
Yeah.
talks about the
Yeah, yeah.
architect and
if
says
you
he's
remember
not
that
around anymore.
conversation where they were talking about how the trilogy machine regime after the peace treaty there was this battle but for resources, and then the matrix changed. They even said everything seemed to change at that point. That's because the programs that won basically wiped out the previous machines and took over and control, and that's when they started to do like the shock and awe matrix version. So
Right.
I don't know. It's something.
everything terrible.
It's some similarities between the architect
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
no.
analyst that makes
They're
me
the same
think
type of
that-
program.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
that they are similar programs to each
it's
other.
like Windows
just that,
and like
it's just
Apple,
that he's.
Mac
I just
OS.
feel like he's in a. I feel like the analyst
Yeah.
is just an evolved version of the architect.
He is, but
Because
he's not the
They
same
both
character.
sit.
Yeah.
No. I didn't think they were the same
Okay.
character, but I thought that he was an upgraded version of the architect for this world. Like that's how I saw it in my head.
Well,
Right.
it was more like the competition program that's supposed to do everything. It's like,
But same concept. He
Right.
is the architect of this
exactly.
particular matrix, calls himself the analyst, but he basically nudged the architect out and was like, "Bitch, I got this."
Twitch versus YouTube.
Not you,
Right,
but
because
yeah,
I feel like
Right.
I feel like they both have a hubris about themselves that leaves them blind to what they think will happen, which makes me think why they are essentially he's essentially an upgraded version of him.
It does feel like they both
or
have
so he thinks.
an ego. Like, yeah.
well, that's their downfall, which was our downfall.
Right.
And in these movies, we don't have the ego. We're trying to catch up while they have the ego, and that's their Achilles heel. But of course, they would have
Yeah.
the same Achilles heel. We made them, like, of course, like,
Yeah.
Which is
they're
interesting
working an
in
hour,
itself.
like,
No,
we could
totally,
literally
yeah.
spend an
I
hour
felt the
just on
same way.
that. Like, yeah. Anyway, speaking of which, all the movie things, you have not told me how you feel about the Matrix Resurrections.
Matrix Resurrections. All right. I liked it.
Yes.
I enjoyed it overall. I think Mr. Marvelite and I see eye to eye on a lot of things. Like I had
You're a good
I
man.
had some issues with Smith as well. I felt like the action was not as on par with the original. It just, I don't know. It felt a little slower to me. Like it felt like, I mean, you can kind of tell Keanu's kind of slowing down, and that's kind of way it felt a little bit, which makes sense. It's fine, but it just wasn't
6 years has been hard
like
on
it
him.
was. Yeah, exactly.
That's how I took it.
60 years. Yeah, right. But you think within the Matrix, he should be able to move just fine. Is the thing too. Like
His brain's tired
So-
and has been rewritten.
But anyway, Anyway, yeah. You can make all the excuses you want, but
You're good.
it's
I'm
fine.
kidding.
He should be able to do it. I mean, he has telefreaking-kinesis, and he can like blow up cars and everything else with his mind, but yet he can't move at the speed of light anymore. You know, like
I mean, but if
I,
you
I
pay
just
attention to
They only
those
do force
scenes,
push.
yeah,
if you
exactly.
pay attention to those scenes, those motions seem to take a lot out of him when he was doing it. So like,
Right.
even though he was making it work, he was looking quite frail. Even he was
Well,
looking
Yeah.
Luke
he had been
Skywalker.
mentally
That was so
suppressed
cool,
for so long.
Yeah,
Like that concept. It was
muscle is
like
not
it was almost
working.
like he didn't like, even when you had like Neo like in the first Matrix, he was trying to come to grasp with what he knew. Like he, the kung fu scene, he has a little bit more speed. Then he does a couple things that people are like, well, we've never seen another person do that before. And then finally he
Mhm.
progresses in in Reloaded, where he's actually
Right.
killing Sentinels in the real world. So it's
Yeah,
kind of like the idea
yeah.
he has to like relearn how to ride the bicycle. So
Yeah, exactly. He's got to like
Yeah.
re-practice
It's like
that.
rehab.
Yeah,
He
why
had
am I
to
why
relearn
am I
everything.
why am I arguing in behalf of this film?
yeah.
I love it. Yay!
No, I understand all that, but still, it's like I still had a problem with it. And
I get it, but no.
Yeah.
I get that way about movies too. I'm like, I don't care if you
I love
explain it. It doesn't work for me. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you.
it's like
I love it.
I mean,
No, I
I
respect
already
it.
I already understood that, and that's why like at the end of Revolutions, when he's actually doing that, in the ship with all of those machines coming at them at once, and he's like he just blows up this wall of machines as Trinity and him are flying to the city. Like that was I totally forgot about that element in Revolution. So when I was in there, I was like, oh, okay,
Oh yeah.
that's why he's able to do that in Resurrections. I was like, oh damn. So I totally like forgot about that. But
Yeah, no, and that's
and
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
the whole like Merovingian thing bugged me. That whole fight sequence bugged the hell out of me. I'm like, why is? I mean, I get like, yeah, they're bringing him back to like antagonize Neo or whatnot, and he's
But
like
did
this.
it though?
I mean,
So Smith
That's
went
what-
and
There were
talked to the
elements. There
Merovingian
were
That's what I've
because the
elements. I agree.
Merovingian's been
that's what
hiding.
I've understood why they brought him back was.
No, I agree. I agree.
But
I
Well, it
agree
was
with you.
also
I
because they
didn't
had
think so.
put new
It was
faces
bugging me more
to
than it was bugging Neo. But
yeah, they put new faces to previous characters for
Yeah.
so many characters. They had to have some like facial recognition from the previous franchises.
yeah,
So
They
exactly.
really
it made
did.
sense bringing him back, but it was a poor choice of using him. So
No, totally. It was like
Well, they
this
look like Lost
kid
Boys at this
thing.
point. Like they look
Right, and it was just
no, they
it was
look
just
like Lawrence Fishburne in like the John Wick series, where they're all acting like hobos, but they're really
yeah.
a bunch of
It was
assassins.
just another one of those scenes that I was like, no, this
I
needs
respect
to either
that.
be shortened or we need less of the Merovingian because he's just yapping and yapping along, just like he did in Damn Reloaded. And I was like, stop this all the talking.
No,
Like, what
those
do
are the
you know?
scenes, and those are the scenes in Reloaded where I'm like, can we move along? Because I was just like,
Yeah. I was like,
ooh,
okay,
he's
guy.
talking.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
he's monologuing. Kill him.
Totally. I know. Like, damn, man. Like the whole time in like Revolutions, when like, I love that when Trinity finally holds the gun up to his head too. I was like, man, finally shut this dude up.
Somebody
Like,
kill him.
it's just like,
Yeah.
there was another.
his
like,
allegory
I
is
had-
like Satan essentially. He's like the Satan of the Matrix world, is what I
Oh, really?
picked up. Yeah, if
Okay.
you think about it,
Satan can die.
when they find him
I
in
can see that.
Revolutions,
Yeah.
they find him in hell, and they literally call it hell. He wears
Right.
red. She's like his, like
That's
you can
true,
get really
yeah.
into it. There's
Yeah.
a lot
Also,
of that.
her name is Persephone.
Yeah,
Right.
If that didn't tip you off, I don't know what did.
So there's a lot
Well,
of
and,
that.
like, also in like in Reloaded, when we first see him, his tie, his knot is a very specific knot, and I'm pretty sure that was a Trinity knot
Mhm.
because I like even looked it up because it was a very like fancy. It is a fancy knot in the new one too, or than the in Revolutions as well. But yeah, I love a lot of the action, and I love just the whole scene where they like actually jump off this roof. Like when I found that out, I was like, that's crazy. Like the cinematographer had a hard time shooting that whole sequence and everything with them flying. Like literally, they actually really do that.
Well, it's a huge
that's no
crane
CG.
operation that they have that
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
helps them
Like they
fly.
have cables and everything, but yeah, they
I
still
was
had to, like-
excited for that scene because I watched the video you made.
Oh,
so
sweet.
because I seen the video And then when I saw them running on the roof, I was like, "Oh, this is the part that Brian was talking about." I was like, "I'm excited! I got really excited!"
I was like, oh
So
my God.
when I watched it, I was like, "I got a bit of information to go with this," and it sat better with me when I watched it. So
Right.
thank you.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah. And I did love the love story between them, the two of them, even more with this film too, I will say. And I did like a lot of the like little meta elements to it. And like Mr. Marvelite said, I love the way they were able to control Neo in this one in the real world or in the Matrix, I mean, and just like using therapy, and like explaining away this whole like experience he's had from the Matrix is as part of the
That killed me.
game. He's like, I know. Oh man, it was like
So-
wow, they really figured
They
out a
really
way
played
to like
along on that though.
really
Like
control them.
it was a
Yeah.
good portion of the film. I'm like,
Right.
okay, are we watching something that's making fun of the Matrix, or is this the Matrix? Because
That's
like,
what I liked about it.
Yeah.
You didn't
Yeah.
know still. You were like, wait a minute.
I
Are
feel like
they
they
gonna
played it
go a
just a
different
little
direction?
bit too long. Like they were holding
Yeah.
on to it a
Yeah,
little bit
I think so
That's fair.
too
too.
long.
I
But
love
also, I like the fact that
I like
it
that they
plays
did
into
the. I don't know.
it plays into what the architect said that they usually do, is that when they usually reboot everything or bring everything back, they bring everything back into the code so they can figure out what to do better next time. And this way, he had it displayed for people to see and talk about and discuss and debate. And like they literally were laying the groundwork to realize, like, okay, if he ever came back, or this is what he did this time, how can they're
Right.
loved. Let's separate them. Like so it came all the way back around.
Yeah.
In this one, so I like that element too. So
I love the
And
John
do
Wick
we really need a
elements
recreation
too.
of the Smith fight?
I mean,
Right.
yeah,
There
It
was,
wasn't.
like,
It wasn't
a temporary
exactly the
moment
same,
there.
but like it was
Right.
like the same fight, but like they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're
the
gonna call a
truncated
spade a
version.
spade, if we get mad at that, let's get mad at the fact that every time Trinity fights, it's the same fight every time.
No,
she
no.
fights.
Everybody has a special move in the Matrix. Like it's a video game move. Like
Yeah,
everybody
no,
has.
I know.
Morpheus has
Like,
his.
Yeah.
I know, but
Mhm.
but if for me, hers felt very. I can see it every time, right? It was like I felt like there were no variations to her choreography, but I feel like everybody else has variations to their choreography, but her. Like,
Yeah, but she only
and I
fought
get
for
it.
like
It might
what,
be
5 minutes?
it might be like a signature. It might be like a signature like Trinity thing, but I mean like over the
Right.
course of all 4 movies,
Right.
like they give her 4 things to do when she fights, and it's the same exact thing every time she fights, and
Can we talk about though Reloaded and the insane, it's still like spikes my anxiety to this day, the insane highway that they built for that whole chase scene.
We can.
And her like she's actually
the
riding that
motorcycle.
motorcycle. Yeah.
Mhm.
She's doing that.
Yeah.
And like it still like gets me going. I'm like, oh my God, like I mean the cars are CG, but still like
Some of them.
But still,
are.
yeah,
Half
for
of them, I
yeah,
think, are
some
real.
of them are, but
I do
yeah.
want to give my take on the resurrections because we have not gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
Yes, but
Because
they're
Oh,
straight.
yes, fine. Like,
I'm so sorry. It's okay. We're all excited. This is obviously a fun conversation. We're all
Yeah,
very excited
yeah.
about it. When I turned this movie on, as soon as I watched the regular Warner Brothers morph over, just like all the movie things was discussing about the original film, I got excited like I was in '99. I actually was like, holy crap, we're walking back into the Matrix. And I was so enamored with the original films.
That remake. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is really familiar. And it sucked me in such a way that I got really, really, really emotional every time Neo was on screen because I was empathizing with him. And when he was like, I don't know whether I'm crazy again or if I'm stuck in a computer generated reality again. That scene is when I basically got triggered and I couldn't stop being emotional about the film from that moment on because I just kept thinking about this poor fucking guy. Like,
right.
This poor, like, forget all the movie and just the story of this poor, ridiculous human who wants, like, what a mind. I'm gonna break the rule, but what a mind fuck. Like,
that's our one.
no, I did
Yeah,
2.
those are the
I did 2 in a row because I'm that upset.
Did 2 already. Oh,
I
gotcha.
quite literally don't. I don't know. Ray was discussing this with me earlier when we were talking on TikTok, and it just wrecked me. On a second viewing, I understand how everybody's, the movie is not perfect, and it is my least favorite of the 4 films, but it still got me really emotional, and I think it is a beautiful end cap. And to say that love conquers all over choice between this and that, I think was a really good message. And I think they did a good job of saying, or that Lana did a great job of saying, this isn't a choice. You have to leave the Matrix and do what's right, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how hard it is. The right choice is the right choice, no matter what. And love conquers all. And
Mm-hmm.
that, to me, chef's kiss.
I will say I like that it dug into like mental health,
Yeah, I
right?
was just saying that in the chat.
It dug
Yeah.
into, do I stay drugged and live in this like matrix,
Mm-hmm.
or do I stop taking these pills and actually see my life for what it is, to see if I can manage and deal. Like it gave a nice look at like true emotional like and mental like therapy and help, and distress, and you got people from all sides of you telling you that like you feel crazy or you feel like you're telling the truth, but people are saying no, that's not what it is. And like, and to
Hmm.
have that type of internal battle, was to see that portrayed on screen was actually very 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 well done, for one, because I really feel like Lana the Wachowskis probably already went through that because of like their transition. They probably have a
Hmm.
um um very long like journals filled with their own like
Hmm.
mental struggles or internal struggles that they've had. So to see that on screen and done with a lot of respect, uh I thought was very well done.
See, I
Well, yeah.
actually felt a little bit differently toward that. And mainly it's because if you consider that the therapy and the medication that was supposed to assist him with with functioning was actually
Hmm.
what was oppressing him. It actually sent a message of that the medication would do more harm. And you have people that mental health is it is a biological or a physiological issue, and so there are people that do need to be on medication, and that it does assist. And it was kind of the message of that medication is holding back. And there are people, and this is where I kind of like bothered me with the term, like they talked about the sheep or the sheeple or whatever.
Right.
And then you have this there's a group of people in our society who,
Yeah.
one, not only believe that everyone is sheep for doing certain basic
Hmm.
common sense things, but many of those individuals, whether they're religious or not, also believe that mental health is fictional, that
Yeah.
people don't need medication, they just need to stop
Hmm.
acting like, it's kind of the idea of pull yourself by your bootstraps and
Right.
just be happy and stop dwelling on the past. So it kind of that's what kind of struck at me, because I sometimes feel like it's kind of like those people that are like, that kid doesn't need medication for their attention deficit disorder, they just need a good spanking.
Right.
And it's like,
I can see that. I
Yeah.
see your point on
so
that. I don't think it was trying to drive that message, but I can see how it can be
right, but it's
misconstrued
like
as that
it was
message.
kind of like
No.
it's like a fine line you walk when you start addressing something like that in a fictional setting where you're trying to use that as a catalyst to something. And I think,
Right.
you
Hmm.
know, yeah, that's just where I came from with it.
But I think that a lot of people can relate to that whole like this pill regarding mental health and like what's real and what's not real, because I've literally had experience of that to an extent where like I was diagnosed with depression a long time ago, and when I was first diagnosed, they I was in the military and they like overprescribe everything in the military, and they like overprescribed me this. Back then it was Zoloft, and it was like a heavy dose, and I definitely felt like I was not myself. Like
Oh yeah.
when I would take it, like I literally felt like I was like operating a like robotic version of myself. Like the real me was still inside, and I could see the other me in a way, just acting happy and acting like things were fine and everything was like totally normal. And I had to like fight it to get off of it and get out of it, and like I take medications come a long way, and it's like way better now that
Yeah.
I don't feel that. But I definitely could relate to that whole like, oh, I
Well,
gotta take this pill, but it doesn't make me feel like what is real. It's just making
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
I
it's
like
like
think
this
that
layer of things. Like yeah.
for the Wachowskis, specifically for Lana in this case, because she's not only out, but she's also very public about being out, which is not common, especially in Hollywood, for trans people. Um,
Right.
she has definitely gone through plenty of her own therapy and has been on that side of medication with depression and anxiety because
Mhm.
being a trans person, you're automatically almost guaranteed to have those things just due to the life you're
Mhm.
living and the fact that you're
Yeah.
fearing for your life on a regular basis in this world.
Mhm.
This had to come up. This is part of it. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
concept of the Matrix is a
Right.
trans allegory. The idea that you don't get to be who you really want to be, but in the Matrix you can. There's no doubt
Mhm.
that came from the mind of a trans person, and not that it couldn't have come from
Mhm.
a cis person, but it's a little easier step to make for a trans person. So it's just I don't know. I see this all. I guess from maybe a little different perspective for maybe some of that reason, but um, I want to get to what you were saying about some of the incredible parts of everything that this series has, but I did want to touch on the freeway scene because you were talking about practical effects, Mr. Marvelite, and you were saying how they didn't do them, but that entire freeway is completely constructed for like 4 miles or something, three
Yeah.
miles or something like that,
Yeah.
in order to do all of those sequences, including the explosions and things like that.
Yeah.
So, sorry, all the movie things. I really wanted to hear what you were going to say about that before I had cut you off earlier. So go ahead.
Oh no, I just like that was like an element of Trinity's character too, was like, and that continued on in Resurrections where she was like proficient in like operating a motorcycle really well. And like, I mean, it's just amazing how like that scene still, even though I know all the behind the scenes about it, like how they built it, and it still is able to like trigger something in you. I'm just like, man, how is she doing this? Like, you still feel, even though you know she's gonna get out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and be safe. There's just, man, it's just a really, really well done. That whole sequence is just great. I loved it.
I
And
love the
like,
music to
also,
it
I was
too.
like, yeah, I was just gonna say the music. Like, I was like, why is the music? Why am I? Why am I like humming along with the music? Like I knew the music, and I forgot that I had bought the soundtrack 2 years ago when it, when it came out. So I'm like, oh, I have this
So
damn soundtrack.
the name of that song is actually Mona Lisa Overdrive, and it's 10 and
Yeah,
a half minutes
that's right.
long, and
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
yeah.
The one with Agent Smith is called The Burly Brawl, which is a great name for a song. But
Hmm.
yeah, I owned all this. Like I'm telling you, I'm a Matrix nerd to like the nth degree. I should have brought my Morpheus glasses. They're sitting over there. I should have worn them. Um, we haven't really discussed the Animatrix much, and it's interesting because it's
Oh
not
yeah.
something they do often, where they pair an
Hmm.
animated series along with a movie. But they did a good job of making some great history. I'd love to talk about the um, Renaissance, Second Renaissance, Part One and Two a little bit because I think it ties to Io and the split
Hmm.
that we see, and even things in Resurrections. The Animatrix sets a lot of that up, and I think a lot of people might not like the newer movie because they don't have that information, they don't have that material, um, and it just shows exactly how evil we were to the robots in the first place in order to be. Uh,
Yeah.
just where we are. The Matrix makes perfect sense by the way we
Hmm.
treated them. I mean, we literally just we treated them worse than we even
Like
treated
like
ourselves.
Yeah.
like we're humans. I
Hmm.
mean humans been doing this since the dawn of time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We treat
Hmm.
everything that's different from us essentially bad or
Yep.
worse. So
And the
I mean
machines
I
didn't
will
want anything from us.
yeah,
Hmm.
they learned how to hate if anything else, or be disgusted by us at least just more as much as we disgusted by ourselves. I will say this: I don't remember all of the Animatrix
Yeah.
because
Same.
they did for me they did kind of like blend in a little bit. But I will say when I watched it, I did go, "Huh, that's interesting. How that's going to tie into this. Ah, does that go into this?" And then it stayed in my brain until I watched all four films, and so I was able to recall things. So to me, it enhanced my viewing process. I will say that again. I can't. You would have to explain what what the episode you're talking about is for me to be like, oh yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
from that initial viewing to viewing the other four, I was able to recall like, oh yeah, they did a thing in the Animatrix about this that tied into this that beefed this up a little bit more. Okay, I
Hmm.
understand this because of that. So like for me, the Animatrix works in that way, but I can't remember for the life of me what these episodes were. If I'm
All
being
right.
honest.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Snitty, you're muted. People were saying you're muted. Yeah.
Frustration. That's okay.
Weird.
You guys have heard me, and we'll get to it. But essentially, this robot is turned for good in the Animatrix because the humans have manipulated it mentally through the construct,
Right.
and then it fights for them, much like the robots in IO would. And actually
Mm-hmm.
watches one of the humans that churned it die and gets upset and I think kills itself at the end. The whole Animatrix is pretty dark. Like
Jesus. Yeah.
it's not a nice
I
thing.
Yeah,
forgot that one.
it's not happy ending.
Damn.
No, and then there's the
No.
runner, the guy that learns that if he can run faster than his mind makes him believe he can. He actually breaks out of the matrix, and it breaks him physically. They put a
Mm.
shell on him essentially. Like there's all these little stories that I think are great, like little glimpses that Neo gets while he's locked in them out of the matrix. But talking about that is something I didn't want to bring up or didn't get to bring up earlier. The bit that when he gets to go to purgatory, essentially the train station, but he also
Right.
gets
Yeah.
to attack and destroy all the real world machines is quite literally
Mm-hmm.
because he's like 5% machine. He just didn't know it until the architect told him, and he was once he understood, he was able to basically break the matrix, and that's why he was able to avoid the fireball, catch Trinity, save her by pulling the
Right.
crap out of her heart, and
Mm-hmm.
destroy things in the real world and sense them. But he just was able to unlock it basically, which I think is interesting because that boils down to why Trinity and him are the one because they actually took code out of him, put it into her. It was, and
It all comes full
that was a
circle.
that was a disgusting and awful scene again when I watched the the analyst explain how he experimented on them over and over again. This goes
Oh
back
yeah, yeah,
again to
yeah.
the Second Renaissance when
And like
they
they were like
experimented on
screaming like,
us.
oh
Yeah, just trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to make humans do this. They did that to Neo and Trinity over and over again until they got it right. So they
Right.
just kept them
Mm-hmm.
alive while they did this. Like that's
Yeah.
God, that's dark, and it makes me I don't know.
Yeah.
It gets me emotional. So
I mean, but that's in our history as well of people being experimented on and things like that. So it's just more of our real lives being pulled into this film that makes it just hit different for me than the other ones do.
Right. I will say too, I did not like those cute robot things that they had that were friends with them.
oh really?
That's the one that took me out of it. Yeah, I was like, oh, what is? Nah, I don't
Hmm.
know. I didn't like those at all. Yeah,
I
I was
love
like,
them.
ah,
I did too.
okay,
Sadi's little robot was the cutest little thing ever. It camouflage, it goes invisible, and
Mhm.
right,
I love
I
like
like
it
the
was
one
like
that looked
Ujaku
like
or something like
a
that.
it looked like a squiddy, but it was like a brick instead of like had the tentacle legs. The one that pulled him out. I was like at first I'm like, what is that thing
hmm
doing there? It's gonna hurt him. And then it was friendly. I was like, that's cool. It's friendly. All right, Mr. Marvelite, you got anything else to say about the Matrix series?
Animatrix.
Well, Animatrix. No, it's been a while since I'm actually kind of going back and just looking over.
No, all
I
the
mean,
whole
the second Renaissance was probably the most like it was the best explanation because I think that like when Morbius told Neo why they were what they were fighting for, why humanity was
hmm
being used, the second Renaissance really kind of gave that full explanation that I really felt was needed. It made me feel differently about the war, specifically that it was almost kind of like mankind deserved it, and you had this idea that it was like regardless, mankind had become what the robots, or what the AI had been, where they were hunted down and they were, the whole focus of destruction. And
hmm
so it was definitely interesting, and I of course the flood of the Osiris is probably one of my favorites in the Animatrix, just because of how it leads into everything else. And I think that's where it kind of like everything else was like Easter eggs, and you could pick up Easter eggs throughout the entire, the movies from the Animatrix, but you've got Kid from Kid Story, you've got the Flight of Osiris leading into Enter the Matrix, leading into
Hmm.
and going through Matrix Reloaded. Those things were, I think, the best part about the Matrix, how they just kind of connected and built.
Yeah.
And it was definitely the Wachowskis were brilliant in trying to really absorb us into their world, which I thought
Hmm.
was great.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts about the entire series, or how we feel about it, or any things that maybe we want to clarify or that confuse folks, or anything?
If I had to choose a
Because
favorite, it would probably be the movie that I don't think is necessary, which is The Matrix Resurrections.
Funny.
that's
You
your
see how that
favorite.
That's
works?
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird how that works. Yeah. We could
I
rate.
mean, I
We
like.
do
Yeah.
have 15
I
minutes.
feel
So yeah.
like to me the original was always in the corner by itself because it's the original. I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes you can't touch the OG, but I like Resurrections because I understood it better because I feel like I live in that world. So
Makes sense.
I mean, it's hard to
look at Mr.
deny
Marmalade. He's like, no.
it's in the overall impact that Matrix has had on the culture, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's like found its way into like our daily language. People say, "Oh, the glitch. There's a glitch in the Matrix," just in conversation. All the time, and just those concepts. And we talked earlier before the show, like how there's philosophy classes about it. There's books on philosophy regarding the Matrix. There's so many different things that it's it's just I mean, I'll say it's pretty close on par with Star Wars as far as like how much of a cultural impact it's had with so many people, and just a different kind of different level, and um yeah, it's I mean, you even if you don't like all the film, like overall I think it's a success, in the fact that alone it's just had such a cultural impact on the world, and what the Wachowskis have been able to accomplish with it, and just bringing up larger discussions about us as humans, and like that's what I love about movies, and when a movie can do that and make you question and discuss all these like deeper things. Yeah, there's awesome fucking kung fu and explosions and flying people and telekinesis and all this stuff, and mechs and like, but at the end of the day, it's really this deeper thing about what's reality, what is like. I'll always love that thing that Morpheus tells Neo is like, what is real to you? If it's just electrical, if it's just your brain telling you what's real, just electrical impulses,
Yep.
essentially is like,
Do you think you're
yeah, you
actually
can,
breathing air?
Is
yeah,
that air you're
exactly,
breathing
yeah,
in?
like,
Yeah.
so I mean,
And
that
honestly,
one
they
thing,
always forget
huge.
that in the rest of the movies.
Yeah,
They always forget that I really forget that they forget that the air ain't real. None of this is real
It'd
until
be
like
hard, even jacked in. It'd be
yeah,
hard to
no, totally,
remember.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Neo
they're
doesn't breathe very much. If you notice, it doesn't ever look like he's
hmm,
breathing that much in the Matrix. If
yeah,
you watch very
I'll
closely.
I'll tell you right now, we're in an age right now with VR and stuff where it is very easy to be overwhelmed by what you're around. I last year I got one of the Oculus 2s and I did the what was it the International Space Station,
Mhm.
Mm.
and I am standing, or I
oh
stood and
man.
I realized that was not a good idea, so I sat on a bar stool, and I kid you not, I almost went head first to the ground multiple times because just visually, my
Yeah.
entire like the immersion was so deep that I completely lost like the concept of gravity
That's
and
crazy.
balance and everything else. And like I was diving for the tunnel to go to one section and I literally dove. And you
Oh
watch
my
people like
god.
doing those like those plank things where they feel like they're falling off the building.
Hmm.
That struggle is real. And so if you think that's just with goggles where you're not even connected into it, and to
Right.
think that the whole idea that you're jacked in with this digital self image and
Hmm.
everything else, it makes complete sense as to how I mean you have your hearing, your sight, your smell, your
Smell.
touch
Yeah, the taste. Like,
is
yeah.
completely immersed. You'll forget.
Yeah.
Because regardless of whether
Totally.
you know it's real, that knife to the throat is gonna hurt.
Right.
It's like Yeah, 'cause
falling
the
on the
pavement's
pavement's
because
gonna
you're
hurt.
feel it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No,
Will it though?
so
Is it
even
a real
no,
pavement?
whatever
I'm
happens
just
in the
saying.
Matrix happens in the real world. We know that you'll die
Yeah.
if they pull your plug or
I
if they.
know, but I just feel like if I don't know, I feel like Morpheus gave the key to how you can kind of survive a little bit better, and no one seems to use the key. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Well, they all do. I mean, think about how Trinity in that first scene we see her in the first Matrix,
Yeah.
she
And she
jumps over an
scales the
entire city
wall, like,
block, to the
yeah.
other building, like, and then she flies through a small window, rolls
Yeah.
down the stairs, and
Yeah.
is sitting there
And was
with the
able to, like,
guns up, like,
yeah, I love that
move.
part.
Like,
Like,
there is
I'm
this
not.
concept that
Mhm.
their abilities are completely, maxed out when it comes to, but there is still that concept that their mind just cannot grasp the fact that none of this matters. And I think it's more of the idea.
Which I don't understand. I kind of get in the first one, but then I kind of still don't kind of get because people have been jacked in way more than Neo ever
This comes
has.
to the code.
Mhm.
Neo has computer code in his DNA. Nobody else does. So he doesn't have
No, no, no.
limitations.
I know.
Whereas
I get
they
that.
translate,
I
he
get that.
actually is immersed in it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted more. I feel like if
That's why he can see the code too, because
I
he's.
guess because he's part of the code, he's in the code. He can manipulate it to his advantage a little bit better, which is why he can
Mhm.
move just as fast as them. But if you think about it, Morpheus wasn't as fast, but he was close because he wasn't
Mhm.
the one, but he was close, and he didn't have that DNA. And it seemed like whenever he got punched in the face before, they started whooping on him for real, he kind of ate those punches. He kind of
Yeah.
ate those punches because
For real. For real.
he believed his concept a little bit more. Like that's all I'm saying. I'm not, I'm
Well,
not
think of it
Mental,
this
but he
way:
had
we're
mental,
all,
like, yeah. Go ahead,
yeah,
Nolan.
we all know how to utilize the program, but the problem is only one person has admin access,
Right.
and that's the ones.
Right.
The only thing that
Mhm.
really bothered, and I'll say this, like, going back to the resurrections, are our necessary story of the day. Um, the whole bullet time thing where they reversed it and used it against him, that was the most inconsistent scene that I have ever seen. Like
Mm.
even like the way the analyst was moving at certain parts, like I felt like they just phoned it in there. Like I get that this is this is like an ability that they don't have, that they didn't have access to, that they're reverse engineering. But like
Mhm.
what I felt like was like they spent so much money on so many other things for this film that it didn't make sense that it wasn't consistent. Like to the point of where, Neo is slowly moving the entire time, but then you've got Neil Patrick Harris, it's like completely choppy. And it's almost like I had to restart my application because I was watching this on HBO Max because I thought that it was my computer lag or my tablet
Oh.
lagging. Like I'm like, is there something wrong? Like did the internet go down? Like
Mm.
I even stopped and went and checked the internet
But
because
doesn't
it
that mean
just
they're doing it right?
no.
See, everything with the Matrix, everything with the Matrix, whenever they upgrade or whenever they're like now, like it just makes sense because technology will always advance. So I don't know. I roll with it, I guess. I don't know. We
I
have
don't know.
9 minutes
You're too
left.
forgiving.
I love the series, so I will be.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are other series that get forgiven due to love, and I'm okay
not
with
due
that.
to love.
I'm okay with that.
I feel like you forgive the things you want to forgive. You bring up the things you can't, and you move on from the rest of it. And I feel like we all do that. There are certain things that we just can't get past, like the love of Neo and Trinity. And then there are things that we do let go, like the CGI. I mean, the CG in the movie. So
Mhm.
it's
And
toss
Neil
up.
Patrick Harris.
If I could be where
Listen,
you
I love it.
are
I love
Damn.
Neil
to
Patrick Harris.
punch
I think
you
he's a
in the
Mhm.
national treasure.
face, no, it's fine.
I think
just
he's a
punch down.
national treasure, but like I was really disappointed they didn't even give him like a song or dance in this one.
They should have done something at the very end when they were doing the post-edit credit scene. That would have been nice. Like have him.
Oh, and that end credit scene, like
Oh yeah.
That I could have done without. I genuinely
Yeah.
could have done without it. There was no need.
they
Yeah.
Okay,
should not
so
have done it.
okay,
This is the plight of Marvel movies. Like this is the one thing I can't stand. Like everybody doesn't have to do that.
no, I
Oh,
agree.
Well,
It
did
doesn't
you
have to
see
happen.
in Reloaded that there's if you stay for the credits, there's the trailer for Revolutions.
Yes,
Well, yeah, but that
Yeah.
was it's a trailer.
because it was they were both
But
released in the
still, like
same
that was
year,
like
and they were
Yeah,
just
because
yeah,
they
getting
didn't
you
want to do
ready
it
for
before the film
you
and
know.
then ruin the film. They did it at the
right.
end. It's kind of like
That is one of the few series that have
Yeah.
ever actually been
But
released like
that's
that. They were both released
Yeah, I
in
yeah,
almost said it.
2003, one in March and one in November, I believe,
yeah.
which was very interesting. Okay, we have 7 minutes, and we are going to rate as we always do. So this is how we're going to do our reviews. We've talked thoroughly about the films, so it's just going to be you're going to give 4 numbers in order. We're skipping the Animatrix. Just give the 4 films, and I'll example. Here we go. 10, 8, 7, 6.
So Matrix, Reloaded,
10, 8,
Revolutions,
7,
and
6.
Resurrections. Yeah.
As far as films are concerned, that's how I would rate these films.
Wow.
10, 8, 7, 6. But I
Okay.
don't care because I love the first film and the story so much that it draws me. Do I think those films are perfect?
Right.
No. I do think they're rewatchable. I'm struggling with rewatches on Resurrections, mostly because I think it was just a nice end cap. So I do love it, but I don't think I'm going to watch it nearly as many times. Done.
Right.
Let's go in reverse order.
Got it.
All the movie things.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 9.5, a 7.5, 7.5, and then I'll say an 8. I still had some. Yeah, I liked Resurrections more than the other two in between. So like the bread more than the meat, as far as this sandwich is kind of concerned.
Mr. Marvelite.
10.
You can
It's one of
quote me
the
on
few
that,
movies that I'll
guys.
put a 10. I will. It's a classic.
Oh, there you go.
It's
Yeah,
like one of those things where it's like it's
incredible.
quintessential. You have to,
Right.
So 10 for the first one, 6.5 for Reloaded, a 7 for Revolutions, and a 5 for Resurrections.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Black Girl Marvel.
Sorry, I'm going through all the films in my head real quick. Just really quickly. I will say 9.5, 7, 8, 9. That's what I'll say.
9.
No, 8. No, 8, 7, 9. Yeah. 8, 7.
9, 5.
She's
8,
giving
7,
3 points
9.
for Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh yeah.
Just trying to make up the difference for your 5. Well, on average, even if he scores it so terrible,
because I'm looking at Resurrections totally different. I'm not looking at it in accordance to the rest of the films. Really, I kind of look at it as its own standalone type of film, and I enjoy it. I enjoyed it for what it was, and like I said, I live in this world, so it just means a little bit more to me. So
all right, I like it. Thank you for the quick reviews on those. I know that we can get into the weeds because it's easy to talk about why we feel those ways. But I think we did a good job over 2 hours. I think we did a good job of covering 4 films and some supplemental in 2 hours. That was not the easiest thing.
Even worked the game in there.
We did work a little bit of the game. And we didn't cover both. There's 2 other games we actually didn't cover, which is The Path of Neo and then the Matrix Online story, which is where some of the movie's storyline actually takes place. So I had to look some of that up because I didn't play it. But still.
Yeah, I missed out on that one too.
So we have one more thing that Mr. Marvelite said we need to rate overall now, which is the entire saga. Why don't we go with Black Girl Marvel? If you were to rate the Matrix Saga as a story, where do you rate it? Skipping Black Girl Marvel, going with Mr. Marvelite.
Okay, so yeah, so I feel like we have it's like between high and low. I'm still gonna say that this is kind of like an 8.5, like the saga as a whole. I mean, this is incorporating video games, animated series, the movies. Like the world building is phenomenal, and though it does take from mythology and religion and everything else, it is very unique and very individual. And I think that we have seen so many different iterations that have tried to play off of this concept. I even feel like Nolan's Inception was definitely was inspired by the Matrix. Like there's so many inspirations from this, and so that's like I say, the Matrix story, the original Matrix was a classic, and I think that you can't just look at the story and think, oh well, let's just kind of like average all the movies together. The mythos behind it is phenomenal, and if they did it right, I wouldn't mind having more. Now I know Lana has said that there's not going to be any more,
Mm.
but that's of course Warner Brothers. That's their
It will.
up to
It's
decision.
them.
gonna be too much.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but honestly, I could be happy with it ending the way it is, and I will
There's gonna be
suspend
a
disbelief
multiverse
to
version.
accept. But yeah,
Yeah.
It kind of covers that already, though. There are
there's
6
gonna be the
iterations
Matrix
of the
Wii
Matrix.
and the
Like,
I
Matrix
mean,
Switch, and
right.
you know,
They're just not parallel with each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
all the movie things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mr. Marvelite. I'm gonna say 8.5, and just everything encompassing, the games. I mean, and just like I kind of look at the cultural impact thing too.
Yep.
That we talked about. I mean, just that's just phenomenal what they've been able to do, and really like was mentioned, inspire so many other stories just from this. So it's, yeah, 8.5. It's
All
great
right. Black Girl Marvel.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Not you lead it down. Like, are you ready? Um, as a whole, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Marvelite and all the movie things have said. This film has great world building. Y'all know I'm a fan of world building. It actually has decent character development. Excuse me. And like I said, for the last one, I thoroughly enjoyed the new characters that were brought in. They seemed like they were of this world, even though they seemed like a new generation and we had to learn them and understand them. And I enjoyed that because
Mhm.
it mimicked the first one where we had to learn
Mhm.
these people, learn this world along with Neo. So now it was like we were back in that seat again with Resurrections. So all that said, I agree. I will give the entire saga the Matrices saga an 8.5.
So it's
Cool.
8.5, kind of
All right.
around the horn here, if you will.
Yeah.
Actually, let's go 8.6 because they put Neil Patrick Harris in the last film. So, you know.
Thanks for skewing the average. I appreciate that.
Funny.
No
This
problem.
is an easy one for me. 10. I
He's
don't
like
think anybody's surprised.
1100. He's like
1100
Yeah.
infinity.
infinity.
So I've been thinking a lot about hot takes. So after you're done, I want to say something about a hot take that I came from this because my mind can't stop thinking about this film. So, go tell me what
No,
you're
yeah,
thinking.
I was literally going to say 10, and I was going to say this has been one of our more successful shows. We've had more viewership tonight than we've had on any other show. So thank you all for being here. That's very awesome. We really love this, and we love being back. And I know that you guys love being here too. As far as well, you guys, the three of you, I know you do. But I hear from people all the time about how they love the show and they love being here, and we just thank you guys. I'm just trying to be a little sappy, if you will.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mr. Marvelite, go ahead, and then we are going to do a raid.
One of the things, if you think about this, and for whatever reason, I've been taking like dark, like hot takes of things lately. If you consider there are people that were naturally born in Io or Zion, and then you have the people that have been jacked out of the Matrix. Did you ever consider the sociological like disparity between the natural born versus the jacked in? And it's not that the
Oh
natural
yeah.
born were better, but that the ones that were jacked in could learn things instantaneously and had
Yeah.
vaster
Mhm.
knowledge of technology, whereas the natural
They could
born
never experience
they
that.
could
Like,
never
yeah,
experience that, and
yeah.
that there would
Oh,
probably be
geez.
like a class issue amongst Io, and they
Right.
never touched on that.
Well, they
Like
did
Yeah,
same
yeah,
thing
yeah.
I think that
in
was
Zion too. They would have been the same problem.
exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
they do show the council members are a mix. There's a mix of people from both, and everybody, even the commander, is a natural born. Like the guy that's running Locke,
Right.
he's unplugged. Like,
Yeah,
but
his
he's
node.
running the whole
Yeah.
I
show.
mean,
So like they
I mean,
do
if you think
trust
about
in
it,
some of that.
Yeah.
if you think about it, I mean, they don't go into it in the way that I know Mr. Marvelite is talking about. They really don't. But if you think about it, the argument between Io and what's her name? What's the girl named Bug? Is
Bugs.
kind of like Bugs is kind of like touching that, right? Because this girl grew up hearing these stories. She grew up seeing this stuff about Neo and the Matrix and thought like Trinity and Morpheus. So she has this like even Niobe to a point. So she has this idolized thought of like her comic book heroes come to life. So she's like, I'm following in their footsteps. And you have Niobe who lived it, who's more so on the, who's I've been through this, and it's not as pretty as what you think it is. It's not as
Mm-hmm.
great as. So to me, they kind of like I said again, they didn't touch it to the point that Mr. Marvel is talking about, but I think they were trudging that line.
Yeah.
And
It
of
could be a
course we
story
want
in
to get
itself.
right, and of course we want to
Right.
get two more films, and they might continue that as we keep going.
Well,
So.
there's also the aspect that if we have to ally against a huge threat, that classism isn't going to be as big an issue when we're literally there's 10,000 humans. And if we don't come together, we're all dead. I don't think classism is as a big a
It's a
deal
good
in that
point. You know,
situation.
World War Z, the book actually with Max Brooks, he actually touches on this. It didn't matter if you were a lawyer or even the president of the United States. At the end of the story of the zombie apocalypse, the janitor was actually the guy who ran the country
Right.
because he knew how to
Huh.
serve people. And those people that were like executives or
Damn.
high up, they were the ones that were cleaning up and dealing with all the refuse because they
Right.
had no
Crazy.
actual earth
Yeah.
practical knowledge, you know, that would actually benefit mankind. So that does make sense. I appreciate that.
I'm not saying that it's true, but I just feel like there's the existential threat is such a big deal. Anyway,
Right.
that great addition, nice little
Yep.
kind of end cap on tonight's show.
There's just so much. So many
Yeah,
layers.
we could probably do
I
another
miss
couple
Dozer.
hours.
I'm just saying
so-
it. I miss Dozer.
I know Dozer,
Yeah.
Dozer and Tank, man,
Right.
both great.
That was
So
that was
Tank.
already
Oh,
a knock on it against
the
Reloaded.
original actor didn't come back because of pay disparity.
Mhm.
He was supposed to be back, but he wanted more money. And again,
They
this
should've
is a
given it to
very
him.
Terrence Howard thing where it's like, but you ain't
Right.
that important.
right, you're a
I
side
get it.
character. Like he was a
You know,
side
it's
character,
like-
but they were like a
Yeah.
side character.
So it's
Like
like,
But
Right.
I love
yeah,
Dozer. Like that actor was amazing in that role.
no, I like
Right.
it.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay.
I agree.
We're going to do a raid. We're doing it right now, but we can continue to talk as usual. But stick with us while we do a raid. We're going to raid the same guy that we did last time, the Raven Armed. This is somebody that Captain Salty Dog has told us about. And thank you to everybody in the chat that has shown up. Captain Salty
Yes,
Dog,
thank
Ray,
you.
Blind Biggie.
Yeah, it's
man,
been
I could
great,
sit here.
guys.
We've
Really
got
good.
We had Nico earlier.
Christina.
Thanks to our new
Nika.
followers as
Let's
well.
see. Yes, so many new followers tonight. We actually got quite a
Yes.
few. So thank you to everybody. And on that note, 14 Raiders, here we go. Good night.
Have a good week, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, he's literally Jack Sparrow now.